Hi guys. So week 3, here we are. We're going to talk about Native American Indian tribes and their government. So the Iroquois League was a confederate of 5 Indian nations, including the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Kawagwa, and Seneca. The Tuscarora joined the Confederation in 1722. They had migrated from North Carolina to New York. Thus, the Confederacy became known as the Six Nation, or the League of Six Nations. So, all this paragraph is talking about is the names of the Indian tribes that are in this nation. Okay, and if I said them wrong, I'm sorry. The Iroquois developed agricultural societies in the eastern woodlands. Their main crops, called the Three Sisters, were corn, beans, and squash. They lived in communal long houses, separated into groups called clans, which were similar to families. Several clans made up a tribe, which held all its council meetings in the long houses. Councils consisted of elected delegates. They were male chiefs who would vote on tribal issues. As women were considered the leaders of their clans, they chose the men for these positions. These organized This organized form of government helped establish stability. The Iroquois were also skilled fighters who expanded their territory from the Atlantic coast to the St. Lawrence and Tennessee rivers. Okay, so they were an agricultural society, which means they were a farming society. And they grew corn, beans, and squash. They lived in communal or group houses. They were long houses separated into clans, which are kind of similar to like our families today. But it would be like me living with my brother and his family. We would be like a clan of people, not just my immediate family. It could be like extended family. So the clans made up the tribes, okay? So the men were the elected delegates, which is interesting because they were the ones who could vote. But since the women were considered the head of these clans or families or tribes, they are the ones who chose the men for the positions. So the men had the power when it came to the votes, but the women put them in that power, which I find to be very interesting. Okay. The Iroquois League played an important role in the European settlement of North America. Its location between Albany and the Great Lakes prevented the French from making a permanent settlement in the region. Moreover, the League's confederacy gave the individual nations more power than they would have had on their own. During the French and Indian War, the Iroquois allied with the British against the French. They opposed French encroachment into their territory. Following the war, the British ordered the Proclamation of 1763 to prevent American settlers from moving into Iroquois territories in the Ohio River Valley. Okay, so what we're talking about here is where they were. Albany and Great Lakes are both in New York. Um, because the Native Americans or the Indians were here, the French could not come here. Okay, so the League's confederacy or government, it gave the individual nations more powers than they would have on their own. So they joined together to become more powerful. During the French and Indian War, which you will learn about in 8th grade, the Iroquois, which were the Native Americans, they sided with the British against the French. And so the French were not allowed to come in there. And the American settlers couldn't move into the Ohio River Valley. We will learn a whole lot about that next year. During the American Revolutionary War, the League took an official position on neutrality. But when choosing a side became inevitable, member nations split off which one to take. Most nations remained supporters of the British, which led to the eventual downfall of the Iroquois League. Those who supported the British attacked American settlements but lost battles and land in the war. After the British defeat in 1783, members of the Iroquois nations migrated into Canada, Wisconsin, and western New York. Okay, so during the American Revolutionary War, which again is something we'll learn about next year, the League or these Native American tribes, they decided they wanted to stay neutral, which means they didn't want to take sides. But when they had to, they kind of split. Some went with the British, and some stayed with the American settlers. Okay, the American, those who supported the British and attacked the American settlements, they lost land and war. Okay, the British were defeated actually in the American Revolution. I mean, in the American Revolution, and that's how we got our 13 colonies. Maryland's one of the 13 colonies where we live today. So, but after British was defeated in that war, the members of the Iroquois nations, or the Native Americans, the Indians, they went to Canada, Wisconsin, and Western New York. All right, guys, talk to you later.